Because rather than God choosing his people, the book of Ruth is about someone choosing to be one of God's people. You see, all the other books of the Bible up to this point have been about God choosing his people and working out his plan. In this book, we see Ruth saying, your God will be my God. Your people will be my people. I will follow you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 180 podcast. Today's message is brought to you by myself, Cole Thompson. Hope you enjoy and that you are blessed through the word of God today.
Verse 6 of Ruth chapter 1. When Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had come to the aid of his people by providing food for them, she and her daughters-in-law prepared to return home from there. With her two daughters-in-law, she left the place where she had been living and set out on the road that would take them back to the land of Judah. Then Naomi said to her two daughters-in-law, go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show you kindness as you have shown kindness to your dead husbands and to me. May the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband. Then she kissed them goodbye, and they wept aloud. And she said to her, we will go back with you to your people. But Naomi said, return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have any more sons who could become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband, even if I thought there was still hope for me. Even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to sons, would you wait until they grew up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters, it is more bitter for me than you, because the Lord's hand has turned against me. Pause right there at the end of verse 13. So some real quick backstory to what's going on, so we're all on the same page, because if you're reading that, you're probably like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it's kind of weird. Okay? Naomi's all like, even if I had a son right now, would you wait on him to grow up? That would be weird, because that'd be a big age gap. Don't know if you're keeping track. But just saying, it's a bit much. But here's what's going on. Okay, so Naomi, Orpah, and Ruth are the three people in this story. Naomi's like the mother-in-law, and then Ruth and Orpah are the two younger ones. And Naomi's husband has died, and then also Orpah and Ruth's husbands have died. You read that in verses 1 through 6 of this chapter. Okay, so you got three widows who find themselves in biblical times. Okay, if you've been around here very long, you've probably heard me say this before, but women in Bible times did not have a whole lot of rights. They were basically treated as property. Okay, and if they didn't have a man in their life, they really had no opportunities to do anything. Okay, the dude was where all the business happened and all the different things that could help someone get through life. So three widows really didn't have a lot of hopeful prospects. So that's where Naomi is saying here, I cannot even have a son, and then you marry him, because what would typically happen is after, let's say you were married to someone, you're a woman, you're married to someone, your husband dies, then their next of kin, who's a male, would take you as a wife, and then that would become your new husband, and that would give you hope for the future, okay? And Naomi is saying here, I ain't got no more sons, ain't no more hope here. I don't have a husband. It ain't looking very good. You guys should just go home. Okay, makes sense? Painted the picture? See where we're going? Verse 14. At this, they wept aloud again. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. So again, Naomi said, go home. Orpah right here is like, all right, peace out. I'm going home. But Ruth clung to her. Verse 15, look, said Naomi, your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. Go back with her. But Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or to turn from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me. Ruth is not messing around. When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. Verse 19. So the two women went on until they came to Bethlehem. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them, and the women exclaimed, "Can this be Naomi?" Y'all, I don't know how you read that, but I read that as the women of the town were being awful gossipy. Okay, verse 20. "Don't call me Naomi," she told them. "Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter." And we'll stop there for tonight. Call me Mara. You know what Mara means? Bitter. Okay, so she's saying, don't call me Naomi, call me bitter, because she had become bitter. Okay? All right, so again, going through, and we're going to be talking about people that are walking behind us, people that are walking before us, and people that are walking with us. And tonight, we're going to talk about people that are walking behind us. I remember growing up, one of my favorite things to do was to always go to the woods with Dad. Okay, I would go to the woods with my dad, and oftentimes that was in the form of hunting. Whatever time of year that was, that's what my dad loves to do. If you talk to him for more than like 10 minutes, you're going to end up talking about hunting probably. And if you mention hunting, you're going to end up talking to him for like an hour and a half, because he'll just talk to you all night about it. Okay? And so that's what I grew up doing all the time. And I realized at some point that my dad was a lot bigger than me growing up. Little 10-year-old chubby Cole, because I was a chubby 10-year-old, y'all. Little chubby 10-year-old Cole. If you've ever seen a picture, I'm not lying, okay? If you're like, Cole, you're chubby now. No, I was chubby, okay? Old 10-year-old Cole could not keep up with Dad's big, long legs. So what I would do is I would follow along behind him, and I would watch where he would step, and I would step where he would step. So, I'd be like, taking some big steps out there, right? Reaching out, but I was following behind him, stepping where he stepped, because when you're hunting, you want to be quiet. And if you're ever walking behind someone in the woods and you step where they step, they've already crunched all the leaves, so it's naturally quieter. And then additionally, it's also, I don't know why, but it's easier. Like the ground just receives you better. If you step where someone has already stepped, the ground receives you better, especially if you're in any kind of mud or snow. It just works better, okay? So I would follow along behind him and step where he would step, and it allowed me to get where I was going better, okay? The first thing I want all of you to realize tonight is that someone is walking behind you, okay? Naomi in the story was just kind of going through her life. She'd had a really rough patch. Her husband had died. Her sons had died. And she was going home, and she realized at a point that her daughters-in-law were following along behind her. They were going with her. And she stopped and she said, "Hey, don't follow me. Go somewhere else." Okay? Don't follow me. Go somewhere else. Okay? We all have someone walking behind us. That takes me right to my second point. Okay? You don't always get to choose who you are leading, or you don't always get to choose who is walking behind you. Verse 8, what we just read. I'll read it again. "Then Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, 'Go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show you kindness as you have shown kindness to your dead husbands and to me.'" So Naomi tries for the first time to get them to leave her and to go somewhere else. And you're like, oh, that's so loving and kind. And you know what? Maybe it was. We don't know for sure. But I also know that Naomi specifically asked for people to call her bitter. So she was probably a bitter old lady. You ever had a conversation with a bitter old lady and sounded good whenever it left? You were like, oh, that was a great conversation. Personally, I have not, okay? Literally, the Bible calls this woman bitter. So again, I don't know, maybe it was just all a great thing, but I have a hard time believing that there wasn't some bitterness in her tone whenever she told them to leave. And then in verse 15, we see it again, okay? So you go down to verse 15. "Look," said Naomi, "your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. Go back with her." So again, Naomi says, hey, your sister-in-law's already left. Leave. Go with her. But Ruth replied, "Don't urge, because I will stay." So the 2 women, where does it say? And then Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her. She stopped urging her. Okay? You don't always get to choose who you're leading. Here's what we like to do. Anytime we hear something like this, and I'm not guilty of this, obviously, because I'm a pastor and I'm perfect. But anytime that we hear something like this, and we're like, oh man, I wonder who is going to come behind me, who I'm going to lead this year, who I'm going to follow, especially as like we get ready to go into a new school year, and some of you are upperclassmen, some of you are getting ready to go to college, and have all these different experiences with different people. And we think, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lead people this year as long as I like them. Or you think, I'm going to lead people this year, but I am not going to hang out with any freshmen because they're stinky. Okay? Or we come up with all these different ways that we like to qualify the people that we're going to lead. And at the end of the day, it's not based on what God says. It's based on what we want. Okay? Something crazy about Ruth. Okay? This blew my mind. Okay? So we just got done reading what book? We just got done, I taught out of this book for like a long time. Judges, right? We just got done the book of Judges. So let's recap the Bible up to this point. So Genesis is where God chooses his people and he creates the world, right? That's basic overview of Genesis. God chooses his people, begins his story, creates the world. In the book of Exodus, God saves his people from exile and takes care of them in the wilderness. In the book of Leviticus, God gives his people rules so that they can be set apart and different from others. Does the same thing in Deuteronomy as well as takes care of them in the wilderness. In Joshua, God leads his people into the land of Canaan. And they pretty much clean up house. Joshua just kicked butt. It's awesome, okay? And then in Judges, God's people continue to fall away, and he calls them back to himself. That's all the books of the Bible. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges. I didn't mention Numbers, but it's just an account of everything I just said. Joshua, Judges, and then you get to the book of Ruth. Okay, there are other books on the back end of that. But up to that point, we've gotten to the book of Ruth. And then the book of Ruth is a stark contrast to everything we've seen before. Why? Two reasons. One is the first book in the Bible that is named after a woman and has a woman as the main narrative. Why is that important? Because to the readers of the Bible in this day, that would have immediately been the lowliest person that it could have been written about. Tack on to that the fact that Ruth was also widowed, and it would have taken her even farther. Tack onto that the fact that Ruth was also not a Jew. She was an outsider, and this book becomes mind-blowing that it's even in the Bible. And then the book of Ruth changes the narrative even more, because rather than God choosing his people, the book of Ruth is about someone choosing to be one of God's people. You see, all the other books of the Bible up to this point had been about God choosing his people and working out his plan. In this book, we see Ruth saying, your God will be my God. Your people will be my people. I will follow you. And here's why I say all of that, okay? Because just because we don't pick whoever is following us doesn't mean that God hasn't chosen them, and it doesn't mean that they haven't chosen to follow God. And maybe we're supposed to be the one to help them with that. See, Ruth would have been the most undesirable person to have appeared in this story. We just glance over it, but again, I cannot stress enough how insane the book of Ruth is and completely flip the script. And we find in our story that Naomi is trying to send her back to her people and her what? Her gods. She says, Ruth, go back to your people and your gods, but Ruth chose different, and she chose to follow Naomi to that. Again, we don't always get to choose who follows us, who we are leading. My last thing for the night. I got to do 3-point sermons the next 2 weeks to make Ian happy. Okay? Wouldn't be right if I didn't. All right. How will you lead? Because we have a choice on how we will lead the people in our life. Naomi chose if you continue on reading in the story, it just backs my point up even more. Naomi chose to go back home and be a bitter old woman. Okay, that was Ruth's mentor. A bitter old woman. That's what she said to call her. But we have a choice to either partner with the Holy Spirit and to lead who has been put in our life, or to just be a bitter old woman.
I hope that the Lord spoke to you through the teaching of His Word today. If so, leave us a comment and let us know. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any of our content in the future. Have a blessed day.